We're now recording on Zoom.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. The echo's been resolved.
Okay.
Good morning. We'll probably be getting started soon. So for those of us at our teleconference locations, if you could please turn on the camera so we can assess if we have quorum, that would be great. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. District Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Chair Rayburn,
Here.
Vice Chair Haudashelt,
Here.
Director Allen, Director Byrd,
Here.
Director Chapman,
Here.
Director Daniels,
Here.
Director Dufty, Director Freericks,
Here.
Director Hernandez,
Here.
Director Holmes, Director Jane,
You're here. Tell me.
Director Lee,
Here, and Director Dusty just joined us as well.
Director Torres is here.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh.
Could I ask council member?
Oh, so sorry, Chair Rayburn, I just have a few mornings. Thank you. Okay,
Keep going.
Director Maple. Here.
There he is.
Director Saltzman.
Here.
And we heard from Director Torres, and none of our other alternates are here. Thank you so much.
I see everyone on the screen and everyone in person. I'll call on Sacramento Council Member Kathy Maples to lead the pledge.
Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
of
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
liberty and
With liberty and justice for all.
I know that I get in there, right?
Well, I'll turn to the report of the chair and welcome everybody to the 135th board meeting for the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors. Note that today's meeting is an in-person meeting in the Solano County Transportation Authority Boardroom on Main Street in Suisun City, with an option for participation via teleconference. Note that all board members participating via teleconference are doing so in locations posted 72 hours in advance of the meeting that are open and available for public participation. You can download the agenda and presentation materials at thecapitalcorridor.org/ccjpa-board. All speakers, including board and staff, are requested to announce their name as they begin to speak. For public participants who joined in person, if you would like to provide public comments, please complete a request to address the board form available at the entrance to the room and hand it to the secretary, April Quinton, here, to be considered by the board. For public participants joined by telephone, your microphone is automatically muted. If you wish to speak on an agenda, when it's your turn to speak, you may dial *6 to accept the unmute request. For public participants who joined via Zoom, please mute your microphones whenever you are not speaking to avoid background noise. If you wish to make a general comment on a subject not on the agenda, you will be given an opportunity to speak under item 7. However, if you have a comment on an item which is on the agenda, we will take those comments after the staff presentation and prior to the board discussion. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person per item. Comments that have been received earlier and provided to the board will be included as a permanent part of the meeting record. Board members, in order to reduce confusion throughout the meeting, when it is time for directors' remarks, I will call for board member comments. Vice Chair Howdesheld and I will speak last. In the interest of time and to provide an opportunity for equal participation, please try to keep comments concise. Next, we wish to express our thanks and appreciation to Matt Burrows, the CCJPA's General Counsel, who will be retiring this year after serving BART and the Capital Corridor nearly 27 years. In 1997, as BART's acting General Counsel, Matt contributed to the government's agreement, forming a regional joint powers authority to transfer management of the Capital Corridor from Caltrans. That agreement went into effect on July 1st of 1998 and is now a widely adopted model. Matt's admirable work includes the innumerable whereases and therefores of every CCJPA resolution and nearly all boardroom legal counsel since 1998. The CCJPA has only had one general counsel. Matt, your commitment to public service has been truly outstanding, and we sincerely thank you for your contributions. I now ask my board colleagues and audience to rise and share with Matt a well-deserved applause. If you would remain standing, let's go down and have a photograph with Matt.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, awesome. This is why I work here for so.
Your own train.
Everybody say train. All right. Where are you gonna put the train?
Oh. And rest assured, we will be in good hands. That concludes the board director's report. Welcome, Director Jane. And we'll move to the consent calendar. Would any directors have any questions, comments?
Move approval.
Happy to second.
I have. Any questions, anything? Please call for the vote.
Chair Rayburn,
Yay.
Vice Chair Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Chapman,
Aye.
Director Daniels,
Aye.
Director Duffy, Director Duffy, Director Freericks,
Aye.
Director Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Maple. Aye. Director Saltzman. And Director Torres.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, everyone. We'll next turn to item 5, the action and discussion items. First will be the CCJPA fiscal year 2023-24 service plan and budget authorization. Not exactly what we asked for, but we'll hear more.
Thank you very much. So for this first action item, we are asking the board to approve the funding provided by the state of California for FY24. I'm going to talk first about the expectations of the funding approval and provide some context. And then our manager of budget and administration, Kat Relucio, will go over the details of that budget for this coming year. You go to the next slide, please. So I'll go through some of the details here, just an overview of how we're structured and the overall funding. But the real takeaway that I want everyone to see today is that we're basically asking for about $13 or $14 million more in the next fiscal year than we did in FY19 for the Amtrak operations. And when you look at our revenue change over that same period, our revenue is down about $14 million. So we have managed resources. We've actually done a lot of changes to improve the efficiency of service delivery. We are still recovering with a pretty good pace here year over year. So I would say we're quite optimistic about the future. In terms of how we're set up, just to give you a high level overview, there are 3 joint powers authorities in California, CCJPA, the San Joaquin's Joint Powers Authority, and LoSAN in Southern California. And all of those services are operated by Amtrak with oversight by the JPAs. And one of the important things that carries us is state funding. We have had support from the state from the very beginning, and we share the same resource. So some of the challenges in Southern California with the landslides that have impacted services accelerated our budget challenges quicker than we expected. In terms of COVID impact, obviously we were grateful to benefit from lots of federal support. What that allowed us to do is use those resources for a few years and then carry forward our state resources. And that has really kept us in service with pretty close to full service for the last couple of years. Although as you get to the end of FY24, those resources are starting to end. And so we're going to have to really in FY25 look for a new approach. And what we are going to do and what we've been asked to do in that letter is to provide some specifics about things that we can do to more efficiently deliver the service. And so there's a list here of the types of things that we're going to look at. We're going to come back to you in November and talk about some of those details. I will tell you that we have already done a lot of things. So we're not only going to talk about things we can do, but we're going to talk about the things that we have done. And why this is important is as we're looking for additional funding in the coming year, we want to be able to tell the story that we have used public resources wisely. We are growing our service. We're hopeful about this expansion service into Roseville, and we're continuing to see ridership grow year over year. So the message is going to be a positive message. We're being very efficient with the use of public resources, and we're growing rail in California. We want to carry as many people as we can on rail. It's really an equity strategy. It's an economic development strategy, and it's a climate strategy. And I think we all know that there's broad support politically for this in California. You go to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we have done a lot of things today. We're very careful as we brought service back. We obviously had to cut service dramatically early on because of the pandemic and the health concerns, but we were careful in how we brought that service back. We have made some changes in the bus service. We also made an important decision early on to release some Amtrak leased equipment. That has saved us lots and lots of dollars over the years. It has also meant in recent years, we've been a little bit tight. So in the coming months, as we start to see more ridership come back, I know we'd like a few more seats on some of these trains. As the venture cars are finally coming on board, we expect those to be commissioned on October 15th. We're going to benefit with more cars over time. So that was a good decision we made early that saved lots of dollars. And I think we're benefiting from that today. We also are working on some reductions in station related costs. And then we've made some changes in our operating strategy, which has reduced the amount of fleet that we need to run the same level of service. So this is all stuff way in the weeds, but it has had a positive benefit to our overall budget. You can go to the next slide, please. And then in terms of what we're going to do, what we're asked to do in the letter, as you can see in your packet, is provide a detailed list of other strategies we're going to promote in the coming years, really in FY24 and into FY25. The big thing that I want to point out is we do have an expectation of a 50% cost recovery ratio. And what that means is that you recover 50% of your operating costs with fares. As you may remember, in FY19, we were at 60% cost recovery ratio. We're at about, I have 38% on this slide. It may actually be a little higher than that. It may be more like 41%. So we're not far from that 50% number, but certainly that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at as we go forward. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kat, who's going to go into some of the details and the ask today.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Rob. Good morning. I'm Kat Relucio. I'm the manager of budget administration. So the board approved annual business plan submitted to the California State Transportation Agency calls for restoration of the Capital Corridor service back to pre-COVID levels, which was 30 weekday and 22 weekend trains. However, due to the uncertainties of future ridership growth and the ongoing structural deficit that Rob described, CalSTA is unable to provide resources to operate more service than is currently being operated on the Capital Corridor. So on the slide before you, the second column is our current level of service for FY 23. The third column is also the current level of service that CalSTA has approved for FY 24, and the funding that we're requesting authorization for will support the current level of service. And then the fourth column for FY 25, our goal is to, at a minimum, fully restore service to pre-pandemic levels, but we will need to address the factors that Rob has described. So you'll see that we have a TBD for the weekday services. Again, our goal is to restore to pre-pandemic levels at a minimum. Next slide, please. Okay, so today we are asking the CCJPA board to adopt the FY 2024 budget authorized by CalSTA, and it's detailed in your board agenda packet. The funding authorized by CalSTA in FY 24, and that is the third column on the slide, includes $44.9 million for the administrative management and operations of the Capital Corridor service. This includes $37.2 million for the Amtrak operations contract. And as a reminder, the state subsidy for Amtrak operations is the difference between operating expenses and revenue collected. This amount also includes funding for direct operations, which is contract outside of the Amtrak operating contract, and funding for information customer support services, administration, and marketing. We're also seeking approval for $1.5 million in Capital Corridor supplemental allocations. So these are additional allocations that benefit the Capital Corridor. That includes $1 million for capitalized maintenance of our right-of-way and minor capital funding in the annual amount of $500,000, which is for small projects that are less than $388,000. And then lastly, the line for intercity passenger rail supplemental allocation. These are supplemental allocations that benefit the three passenger rail services in California, which is the Capital Corridor, Losan, and San Joaquin's. This $14 million includes $2.7 million in funding for Northern California onboard Wi-Fi services. It includes funding for support for the legacy passenger information display system, which we took over from Amtrak at the beginning of FY 23. It includes $1.5 million to support Link 21. And finally, it includes $9.1 million to support the state's California Integrated Travel Project, or CAL-ITP. For this amount, it's important to note that the CAL-ITP project not only supports passenger rail, but it's the statewide project that leads the implementation of contactless payments for the full state, including transit. Again, all of these details are in your board agenda packet. In summary, we're requesting the board to adopt CCJPA's FY 24 budget in the amount of $60.4 million. And this concludes my presentation, and we are happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Rob and Kat, for a very thorough presentation and for the report itself. I think it's very self-explanatory. Before we hear directors' comments and questions, I'll ask if there are any public comments.
I didn't receive any speaker cards, but I do see a hand raised on Zoom.
Please, you have 2 minutes. If you'll identify yourself, welcome.
Greetings, Chair Rayburn and members of the Capital Corridor Board. This is Michael Barnbaum in Sacramento. I am in the room with Director Byrd, Director Hernandez, and Vice Chair Haldeshout. I would like to address the subtopic of cost reduction and request an item be brought back at the November meeting under this subtopic. I've been very passionate about not only reducing, but eliminating Emeryville to San Francisco bus service and replace it with AC Transit Line F, that's F as in Frank, service which operates between the Salesforce Transit Center and the University of California campus in Berkeley through Emeryville, along with the existing BART Red Line, providing service between the Richmond Intermodal Station connection with Capitol Corridor and Millbrae through the San Francisco downtown area and San Francisco International Airport connections. I think this is a very critical service through the bus operator that does not need to be money spent. The money for throughway bus service might be more wisely put to add an additional round trip or two between Sacramento and South Lake Tahoe to match the service provided to Colfax and Reno. And so I would like to work with staff and Leo Sanchez in particular to bring this item back to you in November for an action item at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnbaum. Do we have any other public comments?
I don't see any additional hands raised.
Director Salzman?
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. It shed a little bit more light, especially about the stuff that's been happening in the rest of the state and the emergency rehab they had to do down in Southern California. I think what you've put forward is fine, and I'm happy to approve it. It does concern me a little, the position of the state. This is, a drop in the bucket of the state budget. And it always frustrates me that trains and transit are held to a different standard than cars. I'd love to ask the secretary if he's going to require freeway widenings to have 50% cost recovery. I'm guessing not. So I think there has to be some recognition that we're in different times, yet people are still riding. Director Rayburn and I rode up today together on the train, and it was fairly crowded. So people are riding Capitol Corridor. We're getting close to that 50%. And I think the letter felt a little bit backwards from the state because it says, we're not going to invest more money in you until you produce more riders, but there's a limit on how many more riders we can get back if we don't increase service, because we know most of Capitol Corridor riders own cars or have access to cars. And so if we don't have a train going at the time of day they need to go, especially if they're going to like a meeting or an event, they're going to drive their car. So I think we need to have some back and forth with the state over the coming year I hope we wouldn't have to explain this to them, but to make it really clear that the only way we're going to get to full ridership recovery is if we have full service recovery. So again, I think the service we're putting out now is good, but I want it to be great. So I hope we can work in the coming months with the state to secure more funding so we can restore all of our service.
And I'm happy to comment on that. Appreciate the feedback. And I will say we are going to work, and we have been working with CalSTA and Caltrans and the other two JPAs on a strategy going forward. I think a couple important things. One is to reinforce the need for this service in the fall, talk to elected representatives about how important this service is. The other is when the governor's budget is released in January, to support any changes to our service to provide that support. I think certainly our team resonates with your comment about we want to bring people back. We need to have service in place to bring people back. One note is we have been stuck at 4 and 5 car four car consists. Occasionally we can go to 5 cars because we're so short on equipment. As the venture cars come on board, we're going to be able to extend some of the length of these cars, because I know, and I'm saying this to anybody listening as well, I know some of our trains are now full in the afternoon in particular, and we certainly want to carry more people, and we are going to add cars as soon as we can, because we want to certainly bring people back in comfort. But appreciate the comment.
Thank you both for those comments. Director Frericks.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Actually, I think I had a question for Kat on the approved funding summary chart, which it's under the Cal ITP capital support, and there's an asterisk next to it. You talked about the, sort of we'll say 9.1 million approved as of June 30th, 2023 for the coming year. But it does say that it's conditionally approved once 85% of the remaining funding listed in subsection 2 item is liquidated. So I'm curious about just sort of that when do we think that will occur? But also is that if I'm looking at the correct subsection number 2, it says methodology for distribution of available CIPR funds. Is that the subsection 2 that it is referring to?
So.
And I think I've got a couple comments after that, but I'm just curious about that funding as well. Like
So the
ITP support.
The $9.1 million with the asterisk that we need to liquidate 85%, we're already there. And so we've been able to begin using the $9.1 million.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then just, Mr. Chair, I think to also add on to the comments of Director Saltzman. I mean, I think exactly correct. I really appreciated her comments. I mean, we cannot expect sort of additional riders. It's the chicken and egg situation. We can't expect a lot of additional riders if we don't have the trains and it's sort of the flexible schedules allowed to have those riders be using those trains. So I think we have had, I remember the Solano County Board of Supervisors as an example, Monica Brown, who was at one of our most recent meetings, coming and saying, I used to take the train to and from meetings in Davis and Sacramento. I can't do that now because the capacity is not there and to sort of the times during the day. That's just one certainly anecdotal example, but she now is using her car and single person in a single occupancy vehicle trip. So I think the reality is, and I've heard that from a lot of folks in Yolo County who are trying to head towards the Bay, that some of the frequencies of it obviously changed. So I think, again, I think it's imperative for all of us to really be engaging with our state partners, especially on figuring out since it is truly a drop in the bucket of the overall state budget, to figure out sort of how to fully fund the 3 intercity passenger rail routes in the state to sort of get them fully back up to capacity. I appreciate the opportunity to add on to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments from the board? I'll take a motion if anybody wishes to make.
So moved.
Item Frericks.
I'll second. Chapman.
Thank you very much.
Must be on the way.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Chair Rayburn,
Yay.
Vice Chair Howdeschild,
Yes.
Director Byrd,
Yes.
Director Chapman,
Aye.
Director Daniels.
Aye.
Director Dufty,
Aye.
Director Frericks,
Director
Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Maple, Director Saltzman, Director Torres. Director Torres,
Aye.
thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, everyone. We'll muddle our way through the budget in the coming months, and I look forward to seeing this come back on November 15th as we consider measures to address any budget shortfall at that time. Next, we'll go to Priscilla and communications.
For those of you who have engaged with Capital Corridor over the years, and Rob Padgett, Capital Corridor, by the way. For those of you who've engaged with Capital Corridor over the years, you know that we believe in strong customer service and active engagement with our customers. We have many channels through which we communicate, and many of our best ideas come from the suggestions that we hear from those who ride our service. COVID presented a real challenge to many of those methods, but we're getting back on our feet finally. And we're reopening many of these approaches. And so we wanted to bring to you today a summary of the many ways in which we engage with our customers and some of the ways we're adapting to the ever-changing social media landscape, which is obviously a big way that we communicate our service. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Priscilla Kalugnan, our communications officer.
Thank you, Rob. This is Priscilla Kalugden. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you today. As Rob mentioned, I'm here to talk about our customer engagement approach and all the different activities that we do to get feedback from our customers and to just really engage with them in discussion and conversation. So I broke this down into activities that cover, our outbound messaging, as well as our inbound approaches where we get feedback from our customers, and interactive activities in which we sort of engage with them in a more conversational manner, sometimes in person, as well as some planned near-term activities that we have that will enhance our overall approach. So for our outbound activities, this is some examples of our communications that we put out. We have our CC Rail Mail newsletter, which is an email newsletter. We also have planned service advisories that we get messages out about things like track work or major disruptions that may occur along our service route. We also have a message to riders that we put out from our managing director. In the past, this has been quarterly, and we're going to be resuming that schedule again. The social media content as well is something that we're actively engaged in creating content for every week. And this chart has quite a bit of information on it, but I wanted to show you the many different communication channels that we use, the platforms on which we distribute these messages, and sort of the frequency that we share these information on the channels. The check marks mean that that's something that we do. And I've put notes in there for sort of the frequency that we have. The format and the nature of the content involved really informs how or where the messages are distributed. For example, a written message would not appear on YouTube necessarily because that's a video platform. But overall, our communications team is working very hard every day on messaging for a variety of channels. Next slide. Thank you. I think you need to go back one more. Oh, no, that's okay. It's okay, that's fine. Okay, so this right here is covers our social media engagement on a variety of different channels. Just as a rundown for everybody, Facebook obviously is a very broad audience that engages with general topics, events, service updates, and special service for major events along our route. Instagram is really focused on images of the train, aspirational types of content to help people, get excited about traveling by train. How-to videos sometimes we put on there. Then Twitter, of course, has followers of all different kinds of age ranges, with mostly for breaking news and service alerts. And we do share service announcements, advisories there, as well as some of our other content about our projects. LinkedIn is a professional network, as most of you know. We have a lot of our stakeholders and transit agencies and enthusiasts on there. We share announcements about our projects, milestones and achievements, many of our press releases, and some of our campaigns, such as rail safety. And TikTok, which is a newer channel for us, that's a younger trending audience, but they're looking for really fun, irreverent videos, how-tos, inspiration for travel again. And we share lots of travel ideas there, as well as other information about special service. Now, the top chart here shows the engagement rate by platform for the month of August alone. And actually, I'm sorry, the top chart shows, looks like the headers are switched. So I'm sorry, the top chart is mislabeled, and it should be for the entire year, showing June 2022 to August 2023. I'm sorry about that, for that being transposed. But you can see that peak at the top with the green point there, that was for a Taylor Swift post that we had. So she definitely contributed to our engagement on Twitter. The bottom chart shows the results for the year, I think, and that shows the blue part right there is the TikTok launch that we had in March. I'm sorry, I guess it isn't transposed. Sorry. Yeah.
The top one's mislabeled.
Okay,
That's June, July, August.
yes,
Yeah.
June, July, August, yes, sorry, thank you. But as you can see, for the TikTok launch that we had in March, we had a significant jump in followers at that time. And we use sort of the spikes in the engagement. We use this to inform us as to what kinds of content we end up putting so that we know what kinds of content people are interested in engaging with and use it to help us inform our future posts. Okay, next slide. And as I mentioned, we have different ways of engaging with customers to get their feedback. We have our customer comment portal, which is powered by Zoho platform, and it allows us to create support tickets directly from form submissions, as well as emails and phone calls. I talked about our social media platforms. We do review and respond to comments on those platforms. And we have our annual onboard survey, which has our written comments, and I'll be sharing those out later once we receive them. And we usually review all of the different testimonials that are in the surveys, the written comments there, and we get lots of great ideas from that. Next slide. And for our interactive component, which is actually really our most fun ways of engaging with our customers, this is both online and offline. And we do quarterly conversations webinars, which are online. And we started these during the pandemic, and we'll be continuing those quarterly. Rider appreciation events on board the train. This is something that we did very regularly pre-pandemic, and we just resumed them again in June with a special visit from Slamson, the Sacramento Kings mascot. And I did talk about social media posts as well with our customer comments. A lot of these are also answered by our own staff. We're able to, see the comments come in, and it really helps us to know what the customers are thinking and allows us to be more responsive to them. Okay, and the social media posts, these are some of the planned near-term activities that we have. For our social media posts, we're going to be doing a lot more short format, more frequent content from our managing director and from the staff about different kinds of projects, industry project-related content on Twitter and LinkedIn. And we'll be trying to do a re-engagement of many of our writers as well, and encourage some of the new followers, because we have lots of new writers from the recent years. We'll also be doing more informal polls and surveys about different things, asking questions of our customers to understand a little bit more about the kinds of service that they want to see, and use our Wi-Fi landing page for more messaging. And of course, as you probably know, September is not only Rail Safety Month, but it is also Bay Area Transit Month. And next week we'll be participating in the GM Ride Along on board, and Rob will be riding on board one of our trains and entertaining questions and answers from any riders, and we'll be posting that out via social media as well. Okay. Excellent. Okay, that concludes my presentation today. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have about our communication strategy.
And this is Rob here. Just wanted to add, and you got this from Priscilla's presentation. Our goal is to be very accessible to customers. And we know that people engage with us through lots of different channels. I know often the board will receive calls or emails from riders, and we would really encourage our passengers to submit a formal comment in the portal, because we are able to really react very quickly and send that to the right place. But the other thing that lets us do is it lets us really have a feel for how things are going. So if you get comments, we would ask that you encourage people to take a minute and give us that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see. Before I take director's comments, let's see if we have any public comments.
Yes, no speaker cards received, Chair Rayburn, on this item, but I do see a hand raised on Zoom in Sacramento.
Please carry on.
Hello, good morning again, Chair Rayburn and members. This is Michael Barnbaum in Sacramento, in the room with Director Byrd, Director Hernandez, and Vice Chair Haldeshau. I want to piggyback on the comment Managing Director Paget said about Capitol Corridor accessibility. And I want to go back to just this past Saturday. and how Capitol Corridor was very accessible to go to an assignment with Sacramento State football on their 30-23 upset at the Stanford Cardinal on Saturday. Capitol Corridor 723 and 750 were very accessible, and it saved folks like myself between $100 and $200 in overnight hotel stay in San Jose by being accessible and flexible to make a schedule change for the day to accommodate not only a concert at Levi's Stadium, which was the main focus of the flexible schedule change, but the game as well. In addition, the onboard service was very flexible and accessible. And I will say, coincidentally, on the same date, just up the way up in Berkeley, the Bears defeated Sacramento State's next opponent, the Idaho Vandals, 31-17. There's going to be a big game in Moscow, Idaho this Saturday between the Hornets and the Vandals, the last two opponents of the Cardinal and the Bears. For the Bears fans, we were happy to upset the Cardinal and do it for an accessible Capitol Corridor service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have other public comments?
I don't see any additional hands raised, Chair Rayburn.
Okay. Director James?
Yeah, I'm from Santa Clara, and of course we have Levi's Stadium. And I really appreciate all the social media to get fans to and from the stadium to announce that people will not be stranded. I know Taylor Swift and Beyonce went about 40 minutes late. And so people just want that assurance that they're not going to get stranded. And what I like about promoting these concerts is that we're getting new riders, people that don't know how to use transit, have never used it before. They see how convenient it is, how comfortable it is, how fun it is. So I think I noticed that the Levi's Stadium website now has more information about public transit. And so I encourage us to continue to work with the stadium management to promote public transit and assure customers that they won't be stranded. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. I know that you're in close touch with what's going on in Santa Clara. Other comments? Oh, yes, Director Maples.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that, first of all, thank you for all of your work on this. It's a really impressive plan, and I personally follow on social media, and I've been engaged, and I think it's a really great way to ensure that we're capturing a younger audience too, and like being nimble and acknowledging that that's how young people have grown up their whole lives with this. And so that's the way of the future for communication and making sure that people understand what's possible. Also want to say that Slamson makes everything a little bit better. So it's glad to see that he was on there, the Sacramento Kings. And then also on the Swiftie train and others, I think it's such a great opportunity to be able to use the star power of others to elevate our brand and to get more followers and to help people understand. And the reality is that when people are going to these types of shows, it certainly was a talk of the town in Sacramento. People loved the Swiftie train. I heard many people talking about it. So, and for Beyonce too. So just keeping that momentum going and it's also showing people that there's a way, of course, when people go to a lot of these types of activities, they want to consume alcohol, or they might, not be in a state where they want to drive. And this is a really good, safe, fun option for them to get there and back. And I think that that's really appealing to people. So just great work on that. Thank you.
Chair Rayburn, excuse me, I'm sorry. I think we have some directors in Sacramento who would also like to.
I see Vice Chair Haudesheld has his hand raised.
So Priscilla, great presentation. I know in Placer County, there's some hyper local networks. How do these larger platforms, do these larger platforms integrate those hyper-local networks that we have. In Roseville, we have My Roseville. But how do they integrate that and push notifications to people that may be, you know, not on X or these other forms?
That's a very good question. I think that there's such a variety of more hyper-local networks out there that that's probably one of the next things that we'll be looking at is how we can leverage more of the neighborhood types of platforms, if you will. And if there's ones that you know that are popular, please send them our way.
Excellent. Good. And we have another comment.
I do. First, thank you so much for all the work and coordination efforts that took place to get some of the scheduling for like the Taylor Swift train, for example, or all of that. So the work that we see on social media is a reflection of all the work and all the moving pieces behind the scenes. So it was amazing to be able to see that and have that promoted, but also to build confidence with the ridership about accessibility to these spaces. I did want to ask about a little extension to this previous question is capitalizing on other partners that also are in transportation. So for example, you're at the STA building. My wonder is, you know, if there's opportunities where one of the local agencies is sharing out the messaging of, you know, Capitol Corridor, if there's something that is affecting that local area because of the train, then to have, you know, the relationships between even the agencies and their own social media platforms to share each other's information expands on the network and visibility of people who are already following channels that have to do with transportation. So that was a wonder about how to increase that opportunity as well.
Yes, so we will be working definitely with Solano Transportation Authority on making sure that we cross promote information on different platforms. And we're absolutely happy to connect with any of your social media managers to help, you know, spread the word via your networks and make sure that we know if it's something coming up that we can get that calendared and be on the lookout for it. When we're online, we do definitely try to share important announcements from our partners.
Thank you for those comments, Director Hernandez, and for your response, Priscilla. I'm very appreciative of seeing the ability of this organization to pivot, not just with our service, but also our outreach to the passengers. And I think that you're being very responsive and within our very limited means. So I think it would be lovely. I know we've been asked to form advisory groups, and the advisory groups would probably eat up as much time with staff as our own board meetings. So how to make this work is going to take the professional efforts of people like Priscilla and the outreach that we have established, along with making sure that we're cross-promoting everything we do.
Yeah, and if I could comment on that, we have over the years engaged with rider groups of different varieties, and we will continue to do that, as well as advocacy groups. And that may involve something as simple as attending the annual conference that group has, talking about a topic at request. It may be providing information or data or things that those groups can use. We obviously benefit immensely from advocacy of all these organizations, and we cover such a wide geographic area that it really the interests are sometimes different depending on where folks are in the corridor. So we value all of that input, and we hope that all these channels also provide a means for anybody to engage with Capitol Corridor staff and provide feedback.
Thank you, Rob. And Priscilla mentioned that you would be available for a Q&A on board. I think she said next month, but this is Transit Month now.
It'll be next week. I'm sorry if I misspoke, but it's next week, September 29th will be the GM Transit Ride Along.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Much appreciated. Any other comments? We'll move on to the legislation, no, the capital project update. Item 3.
Yep. So the next item is our capital projects update, and we will take questions on anything included in your packet on any of the individual capital projects. But we always highlight an individual capital effort during this part of the agenda. Today, we wanted to talk about our right-of-way safety update. And this is really more about the engineering side of this equation. But before I turn it over to our newest engineer, Kate Gosling, to walk us through that, I did just want to recap where we are on our safety program. Unfortunately, you can see in the chart to the right, we have had far too many fatalities this year. And I have to update this chart to say we've actually 22 in the current fiscal year, which is, as far as I know, the highest ever. And I want to put in context just the impact on our service. And our superintendent said that this year we've had 22,000 minutes of delay due to either police holds or trespasser fatalities. 22,000. The last year was the first year we had ever hit 20,000. And before last year, the highest number was 14,000. So although our on-time performance has slipped, I will say Union Pacific and Amtrak work wonders to deal with some really, really challenging issues. So we're attacking this on all sorts of fronts. We have, with the board's approval, invested in our right-of-way safety program. We're actually working on a mapping project to better understand places where we can secure things and perhaps go for some federal grants. There's some targeted grants that we hope to go for in the future. We have a great partnership with California Operation Lifesaver. Just yesterday, I was down at Jack London Square. You may have seen that online with a safety promotion event, and they have just been great partners. We had a safety train, which we've had over the years. We haven't had it during COVID, but we're bringing those back again. We had more than 10 officers from Oakland who participated in that, and the same with San Leandro. So we had great participation to get the awareness out about this issue. We unfortunately had to, FRA had to cancel the workshop that was planned to be held in September, but we are going to have that in the spring. We're going to work with them to, again, raise the profile of this issue. And then we'll talk a little bit about the grade crossing safety incentive program. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kate. And we threw right into the fire. We introduced her at the last meeting, and we're going to have her come present at this one.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning. My name is Kate Goslin, and I'm a junior engineer at Capitol Corridor. Today, I'll be providing you an update on grade crossing safety. As Rob just mentioned, Capitol Corridor has seen a rise in fatalities. I made that chart last week with 20 on there, and as he said, we're at 22. Rob mentioned numerous new and ongoing initiatives, programs, and partnerships we have underway to address this issue. I will specifically be discussing our new grade crossing safety incentive program. Next slide. Just for some background, grade crossings are intersections where a highway crosses a railroad at the same level. These intersections present frequent potential conflicts between cars, bicyclists, pedestrians, and trains, as well as a place for trespassers to access the right-of-way. As a result, these locations also present an important opportunity to reduce risk and improve safety. Grade separations, signal and signage upgrades, changes to road geometry, addition of pedestrian facilities, as well as closure of a crossing are some of the many ways to improve safety. Making such improvements, however, requires coordination between three entities: the California Public Utilities Commission, the railroad, in our case, Union Pacific, and local road authorities, typically a city or county. The CPUC is the regulatory agency that ensures that crossings are safely designed, constructed, and maintained. They also establish that it is the responsibility of the railroad to maintain the track area and the local road agencies to maintain the road approaches. While CCJPA does not have jurisdiction over crossings, we wish to bring attention to these safety issues, offer our support, and bridge the gap between these entities to realize our shared goal of reducing fatalities and injuries throughout communities along the corridor. Next slide. In November 2022, you all authorized the development of a grade crossing safety program. This program, as designed, is merely a start, but it is an important step over the barriers to access the available state and federal monies that will be needed to properly plan, design, and construct many crossing improvement projects. Accordingly, our grade crossing program's objective is to offer technical support to and collaborate directly with our partner local road agencies to identify, plan, and pursue projects that enhance safety at grade crossings. At this stage, we are offering our local road agencies up to $50,000 value in consultant assistance to begin to develop grade crossing improvement projects. To date, we have identified all our public at-grade crossings along the corridor, of which there are 117, and identified the jurisdictions they reside in. Over 1/3 of our crossings are already being improved through other programs we are engaged with. Notably, these programs include the Alameda County Transportation Commission Rail Safety Enhancement Program, which is going to make improvements at 34 of our crossings throughout Alameda County. The City of Oakland's Embarcadero West Rail Safety and Access Improvement Program will provide critical safety improvements at 7 crossings along the Jack London Square corridor. Our very own Sacramento Roseville Third Track project will upgrade 2 crossings, and a handful of smaller projects and programs will address a few more crossings. The 71 crossings that do not have planned or ongoing improvements and their associated 21 cities and counties are eligible for technical support through participation in this program. These crossings represent 41 collisions and 10 fatalities since 2018, with some crossings seeing as many as 25,000 vehicles traversing through them on an average day. We have begun communication with the CPUC and Union Pacific with a coordination meeting planned for early next month. We have also begun outreach to the identified local agencies, announcing the program and upcoming webinar that will review the crossings eligible for this program, discuss at-grade crossing risks and opportunities, next steps for interested local road authorities, and assistance and implementation options available to these agencies. The webinar will take place October 25th at 11 a.m. It is our hope that after the webinar, we'll have many of the local agencies partnering with us to collaboratively prioritize crossings for improvements, and that they will accept our offer of expertise, consultant assistance, and support to begin these projects, pursue additional funding, and ultimately implement crossing safety improvements. As I said, this program is just the start, but it is our goal for this to grow and match the success that our colleagues in Alameda County have had with their program so far. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. One of my colleagues or I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rob and Kate, for a very informative presentation. Let's hear first from the public. Any comments?
I didn't receive any speaker cards and I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, Chair Rayburn.
I know Director Jane would like to lead off.
Thank you. I know you mentioned that Capitol Corridor does not have jurisdiction over crossings. And I know that there's this program that San Jose is doing called Quiet Zones, where they make improvements to crossings. So when you say Capitol Corridor does not have jurisdiction, it would be the cities, and then it would be Union Pacific that controls the jurisdiction over those crossings, meaning that if we wanted to add cameras to see if someone was stuck on the tracks or between gates, we would not be able to do that. I'm just trying to understand.
Answer. Yeah, Rob Paget here. Our point in the jurisdiction issue is that the road authorities, which you're correct, is usually county, city, state authority that owns a roadway, has to work with the railroad to work on an upgrade. Now, could we add cameras somewhere? Certainly that is a possibility that we could do something like that. But in terms of any sort of an engineering improvement that would happen at a crossing, that would need to involve the local community. What we're trying to do with this program is basically get rid of anything that gets in the way of moving quickly. There's a level of funding at both the state and the federal level that is an order of magnitude higher than it has been in a very long time. And so a lot of places had not really pursued these because there really wasn't a lot of funding out there to do anything. And that's changed. But we know the reality of procurement, small funding packages, all that can sometimes take 6 months, a year. So if a community wants to partner and use this program, we have a consultant that is able to support it. And we have a little bit of funding to get started. And our hope is that some communities will take advantage of this and move forward. As Kate mentioned, Alameda County has really been a leader in addressing this issue. And we hope that we will see other areas do the same and really try to think about it programmatically and how do we address this issue over the long term.
So I had a couple of other questions. So there was a trespasser strike. It was train 729 in Hayward on September 17th. And I know you talked about 22,000 minutes of delays. You know, the 729 train was delayed 2 hours and 43 minutes. The 737 was delayed 24 minutes and the 732 was delayed 34 minutes. So this is a real concern for me because if people are trying to get to meetings, they don't want to be late and they're not going to take the train if there's a possibility they're going to have a 2-hour delay. And so I know that somewhere in the packet or somewhere I read that we are hiring 2 people to patrol the right-of-ways to check for encampments and such. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the board approved funding, and we're paying for this through our SRA allocation. The board approved funding and we have an agreement with Union Pacific for 5 years to fund 2 patrol officers in the right-of-way. And what we find is that there's a general lack of understanding of the level of risk that individuals are taking when they're in the right-of-way. And it does not take much to convince someone that they're not in a safe place. And so the hope with those patrol officers is that we can prevent folks from being on the right-of-way in unsafe locations. And we have one of those hired currently on duty, is already working the corridor, and our hope is to have a second person on duty. And on your comment about delays, my team would say that if there's a single issue that stands above anything else in terms of reliability, this is by far the biggest issue. And it's not just trespasser fatalities, but it's also vehicles getting stuck on the tracks. So when a vehicle gets stuck on the tracks, we are required to have a track inspector come out and confirm that no damage has been done to the tracks. So that may be a shorter delay, but it's still a delay. And as you know, sometimes those can be cascading delays. So we have to address this issue. And unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot of the societal challenges that are out there today, but we want to do everything in our power. And we've had great support from the board to do that. We're looking for other opportunities as well. And that's our hope in things like this safety conference and then seeking other federal funding opportunities.
Thank you. I see a hand raised in the Sutter Buttes conference room in Sacramento. Would you identify yourself and?
Yes, Chair Rayburn, Vice Chair Howdeshelt here. Kate, great report. Welcome aboard. Paget, great hire. Okay, just let's start with that. Was talking with Union Pacific yesterday. There's a section in which actually Roseville owns the right of way, and we're working with Union Pacific to close a gap there where folks go from our historic Roseville over to downtown Vernon Street. So we're working on getting a fence there. Union Pacific will take care of that. So that will help reduce right-of-way violations and trespassing. Is there a map of where these trespass incidents or where the incidents are occurring, and do we have it for multiple years?
Yeah, we do. This is Rob again. We do have a map. We usually put it in the packet. We didn't have it in this packet, but we have a map that we track fatalities, but we're also doing the same with all sorts of incidents so that we can really understand some of the hot spots. I think that's probably the root of the question. And yes, we are doing that.
Yeah, Union Pacific's a great partner on this, as you said, and that was apparent yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this is Director Byrd. I also have a comment. Okay.
Please.
On the earlier slide, you had a map that showed all the at-grade crossings on the route. And I saw the area of Solano County, specifically Dixon, where we are doing an at-grade elimination at the area of Pitt School Road and Porter Road. And I didn't see that as a project underway listed on your map. I'm wondering, why isn't that there? Why are you not aware of that? It's pretty significant and it is started. It's a pretty important project in the sense that it provides a safe route to school and also connects both sides of the city, which are separated by rail lines for first responders and public safety. So one, I was curious as to why it wasn't on there. And two, if there's funding from this group that can also assist with that, I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, this is Rob. So yeah, we are aware of that project. We'll have to check and see if that's just a coding error on the map. I don't think it's probably anything more than that. And actually that's a really good example. My understanding is you were successful in getting some of the discretionary funding, I believe from the state or the federal government. I don't remember which one. But our hope is that other communities, I know Yolo County is working on something else with state route or County Route 32. Some of these really serious places or challenging places, we want to take this opportunity to go after some of those funds. We did also, I do want to note, Fairfield recently implemented a change at Cannon Road. That was a real challenging spot. They installed a three-way stop and an intersecting roadway, which has improved the safety of that intersection. So we appreciate the support from Fairfield. And I'll just say, anybody that has an interest in pursuing something, please reach out to my team. Our goal is to help you find resources and get to the right place so we can keep things moving. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. And Kate, I really find your presentation compelling. 117 crossings and 71 that don't have a plan or a project underway. And what I think we need to do is help to motivate local jurisdictions to work with us on securing these funds. And one mechanism I haven't heard yet is let's use the media. Could we perhaps, I know we could do groundbreaking. I know I have near where I live in the Fruitvale, we have 4 projects that are going to be underway soon. I would love to be out there with a crew and talk about what this means for us and show what the plans are to improve that crossing for the pedestrians, for bicyclists, and to improve our reliability and not being able to have vehicles enter the right of way. So do we have that capacity?
Yeah, Rob here again. We do have that capacity. In fact, I'm going to introduce at the very end of the meeting our newest person with a media focus. So we heard your comment. It's a great comment and we agree.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So I just want, it's difficult to, for me at least, to understand a response to this when we talk about 22 deaths and not seeing a breakdown of why there are 22 deaths. And I got to believe that probably the majority are suicides. And then can you go back to slide 20? Is that possible? And then I would imagine occasionally we get the excuse my term, but dumb person who wants to go around this arm and not wait for it to clear and go up and gets hit at the crossing itself. Again, I'm not a brain surgeon, but it seems like the solution there is just a longer arm, pushing the arm all the way over into the area where you can't go around it. Us taking dollars and spending them on things that I don't think we're going to be able to fix at some level. And when we have issues with our funding in other areas, I don't know if that's the right way to spend money. I mean, it's 22 too many deaths, but if somebody wants to kill themselves, they're not going to care that we put something near, a crossing or something like that. And I don't know. I mean, I travel up and down from Sacramento and see just countless homeless camps along the railroad. And I don't know that those folks are the ones that are, coming out of their spot and venturing over to the tracks. I don't know how many people just accidentally get killed by a train. I have to think that really doesn't happen too much. And so a lot of focus on staff, a lot of focus on dollars and stuff like that to do something that I don't know is going to change it, because the numbers are going to be, I think, more based on just what's going on in society and what's going on with people, as opposed to what can we do. I mean, we're not going to be able to put a 20-foot fence, down each side of the railroad and, to keep people away. And then your occasional, and forgive me again, just dumb person who thinks they can drive over a railroad, and not have it get their car stuck on it. I don't know how you can prevent that either. I think that doing things like putting up signage that says, if you are feeling suicidal, call this number or something like that, like they do on some of the bridges these days. Stuff like that is maybe a great idea, but I don't know how spending a whole bunch of time trying to figure out how do we keep people from doing that is going to be successful. So I'm kind of concerned about that, not knowing. My point is, I'll go back to the original question, is not knowing the breakdown of how did these 22 deaths occur. It doesn't allow me to have a good response in how do we then prevent them.
Sure. I'm Rob Padgett here again. So the general thing you will hear people in the railroad business say is about 50% of fatalities are suicides. I will say that it is not always, it's often not possible to know if it is a suicide. And we're also very consciously not, and I'm happy to talk one-on-one with board members about some of the details, but we are in a public forum. We're very conscious of not, out of respect to those involved in it, to not get into too many details. I will say, though, there are a surprising number of accidents where people misjudge the speed of a train. And one of the great things about California Operation Lifesaver and the executive director of that, Nancy Shaheen, is really phenomenal in her own advocacy, is to talk about that. Because people, if you think about it right away, the train comes once an hour and every 90 minutes or whatever. But that train's going as fast as a car is on 880, right? And but you would never cross an interstate. And so part of why we really are going to take a multifaceted approach and why we partner with California Operation Lifesaver is there is an educational element. There's a suicide prevention element to it. We have installed signs recently, this past, I think about a year ago, that has been shown in research to be effective. So what we're trying to do is focus on things that have been shown in other places to be effective. And my team's small, we don't have all the answers by any means, but we want to try to tap those things that are working, because this has such a terrible consequence, not only to the person killed, but also to the engineers. And we lose engineers to this issue. If you can imagine a train operator who's had 2-3 fatalities, asking that person to come back to work again is a big ask, right? So we're going to keep trying. And this FRA workshop is that we're going to have in the spring is intended to bring together, and they've done 2 of them so far in the country, bring together people who are maybe working on this issue in Houston or working on it in Colorado or whatever, and they tried something and it worked, so that we can all hear about it and then take action to do that. My engineer will tell, Joel Cox, who's been with us forever, will tell you the only way to make it completely safe is to grade separate it. But you can't do that in a lot of these places. So we are going to look for other ways, and we are going to be as aggressive as we can be, again, focused on things that research and experience have shown to be effective.
I see no other hands raised, so.
Mr. Chair, I do have,
Oh.
sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Please carry on, Director Ferry.
Appreciate it. Thank you. No, and I appreciate Director Daniel's comments. I mean, particularly around the breakdown issue, and I understand sort of, sensitivities there. But firstly, Kate, great job on the report. Appreciate your work so far, and welcome as well. I know others have said that, but welcome to CCJPA. The breakdown that I'm interested in, though, on that slide, I mean, on slide 19 is, it says trespasser and vehicle fatalities, right? And so we're at 22. my assumption and my understanding is that a lot of the folks that have been unfortunately killed by the trains are on the tracks, not necessarily at an intersection, right? Not at a grade crossing. There are real problems and challenges with grade crossing. We know, I mean, that's absolutely an issue, but I think that a lot of what we've had in the past number of years have been folks who were just onto the tracks, however they get there. I think that is, so I'm curious about that breakdown, right? Is it because, you know, it says that, again, this is sort of lumped together, trespasser and vehicle fatality. So I was curious about that. Before going ahead with any other comments, I think, you know, the elephant in the room, obviously, we've had some discussion of this in years past, but is issues of mental health. I mean, and, you know, the pandemic exacerbated, the indicators around mental health challenges were already epidemic levels before the pandemic. They've only been exacerbated since the pandemic. So, you know, I would hope that we can put some energy in from the staff side of things into connecting with the folks, whether it's through public health departments, wherever. I mean, happy to help with this. A lot of us are involved in county life. Mental health is really where a lot of this lies. So, I mean, I think not exclusively, certainly, but I think that there's a lot of overlap. So let's figure out what you need as CCJPA staff and get you connected to the right folks on the mental health side of the equation to sort of see how we can make some, connections there and make some progress there, hopefully. The comments are just around this. So the CPUC's grade separation, statewide grade separation program is an admirable program. It gets funded at $15 million a year typically. And that's 3 to 4 projects, partially typically 3 to 4 projects per year statewide, not just CCJPA. So, I'm curious about what other funding sources are available. There's some talk about just different funding here, but I'm curious about what other sources are available. I know it's always a hodgepodge of sort of and pulling together a number of sources of funding to fix any individual sort of grade separated crossing. So just but curious about that. And then on the CPUCs, specifically their grade separation program, I mean, and it goes back to my first point about folks who are just getting onto the tracks. I mean, one of the keys that we know is needed is money for fencing, right? I mean, so this CPUC grade separation program really only affects the actual intersections. I think it's not really, there's not eligible to be spent on fencing, along the right of ways and such. So curious about just a little, if you could address that. And then lastly, just tonight, I'm on the FRA rail safety workshop. I'm excited that was going to happen this fall. I'm glad that it's going to, unfortunately, it's not happening now, but I'm glad it's going to happen this spring. Please keep us all in the loop on that. And I mean, like, there is an ability to, I think Director Rayburn mentioned, the issues around like engaging with the media on this. I mean, raising the awareness is crucial, but it's also totally doable. I mean, I think we can have a really big impact up and down the corridor by doing that. So please continue to keep us in the loop, especially when that's going to be happening. Thanks.
Thanks for the comments, Rob, here. So I'm going to hit a couple of these, Director Frederickson. If I miss one, please ask me again. So on the question about how many of these are happening with trespassers versus, say, a vehicle, you're correct that most of the fatalities, and I don't have the breakdown with me today, but most of those these days are actually people walking on the right of way or at a crossing. And fewer of those are vehicles, although we do strike many vehicles. So we sometimes strike a vehicle and the person survives. If they're not in a vehicle, it's usually not a survivable event. And as some of the intersections have been improved over the years, what nationally has happened is, and as this issue about encampments and other things has become more of an issue, we're seeing a greater share of fatalities related to pedestrians on the right of way. And one of the really wonderful things, and I wish I had it in front of me, but I don't have it with me, is there are 2 programs. So one is at the federal level, which is part of the IIJA program. I think it's $500 million a year, if I'm not mistaken. That was advance appropriation. So every year they will come out and they will have an opportunity for communities to apply for funds. And that can be for a grade separation. It could also be for a grade crossing improvement. There's also a set aside within that program. And this is something we intend to put an application for in the next round for trespasser related fatalities. So that's like fencing, for example. We could come in and say, hey, let's do 10 miles of fencing and go for that discretionary program. So we want to try to do that. What did I get everything? Is there another question you had?
Just so that, thanks for that. That's helpful. Just on the issue of like connecting, I think, you all with.
Oh, the mental health
mental health
question.
side of things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that, it's interesting. That's you're spot on. And I would say, one thing we might think about for that workshop, the FRA workshop, because that has not been a topic at the two that have been held so far, is to maybe think about that as something that we focus on as part of that workshop to try to look for more of a systematic way. We do in our right-of-way program, we do have connections to county services because a lot of what we're trying to do is make sure if someone doesn't have a place to be, that we help connect them to a place to be so they're in a safer place than on the right-of-way. But I think that's a broader comment that we're going to take under advisement and think maybe there's some places we might be able to advance that.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I see no more hands raised. So we'll move on to the legislation and funding update.
Thank you. And your packet includes a summary of where we are on the state and federal side. Obviously, the state sessions come to a close. On the federal side, just to mention a few things. One is we all have our fingers crossed on Sac-Roseville third track project. We're waiting for $42.5 million to fully fund that project. And I think FRA has said end of September or so, we're going to hear decisions on that. So no releases yet on which projects have been funded. The other thing I know people are thinking about is it's looking more likely that we're going to have a federal shutdown. And I've been asked the question about how does that impact Amtrak? Is there any concern about Amtrak operations? Our understanding from our conversations with Amtrak is that because of the way their grants work, they're fine. They're going to be able to continue to operate. And we don't have any concerns there. We're obviously going to keep an eye on that. The other potential impact of that is that it will slow down the many discretionary programs that are out there. So I know some of the staff at FRA is funded through not through annual appropriations, but we would see an impact on DOT and FRA going forward. And I'll pause there. I'll be happy. There's more detail in your packet about some of the proposals on the appropriation side for this year's federal budget, but I'll be happy to take any questions.
I'll first turn to the public.
Didn't receive any speaker cards, Chair Rayburn, and looking at Zoom, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, directors, any questions? Thank you for that update. Our fingers are crossed for 42 million. And we'll turn now to the managing director's report.
All right, and I will wait for the slides to come up here. So today I'm going to go through our general performance, talk a little bit about that. We've brought back our slide that gives you an overview of customer service feedback. We're getting, as I said, we're getting back to normal. I want to talk again about the multicultural language approach that we talked about at our last meeting. And then I can't leave without introducing our new staff to the team. Here, the next slide, please. So at a high level, we are at 760,000 riders so far in FY23, and this goes through July. So 2 more months left in the fiscal year. Really important stat here that I hope others can amplify is we're up 34% over last year. And our revenue this year, $18.7 million. Again, up 31% from last year. And I will note, I just looked it up this morning. We were over 2 million last month. That would be at a pace of over 24 million. So ridership and revenue are continuing to grow. Our on-time performance is not what we want it to be. We want it to be at 90%. I do again want to say to our partners at Union Pacific and Amtrak, we very much appreciate what you're doing. We know that a lot of this is driven by things beyond your control and that they're doing their best to keep this number down. Go to the next slide, please. So customer service report, for those who are new to the board, a couple things to take away from this. We get about 3 comments a day on average, and we track the neutral. In addition to looking at the comments, we track kind of, are they neutral comments? Are they negative comments? Are they positive comments? We consider a large number of neutral comments a positive thing, because that means people are reaching out, they're asking for information, they want to know something. That's a good thing. They feel like they can access my team and get feedback. So we're keeping an eye on this and continue to share this with you going forward. You know, the next slide, please. So I want to talk about, we had some feedback at the last board meeting about we had a presentation on the marketing for this year, the advertising for this year. We had some feedback on looking at opportunities to do that in other languages. And I wanted to come back to you and just mention a couple things. One is talk about more the accessibility of the service. So on the accessibility side, for riders who maybe are not proficient in English, we do have broad accessibility. When we studied this issue in 2016, the two languages that were most common for non-English speakers were Spanish and Chinese. So our rider guides are in those three languages. The service advisories, the good thing is all the social media platforms have a translation service, so that's pretty easy to use. And then one of the good things about being affiliated with such a large organization like Amtrak is they do have fully built out websites in multiple languages. So in terms of a rider who is trying to access the service, it is available in multiple languages. And even at the ticket counter, there's a phone service. I know a lot of your transit agencies also have this available for passengers who need that. And then on the next slide, just to talk about on the marketing side, we heard your feedback. You go to the next slide, please. We are looking at the possibility of a Spanish language landing page on our website. And there are also some opportunities to automate some stuff through Google Translate. So my team's working on that. And then the social media content, we've got to get with the program here on keeping our social media platforms up to date. And you heard from Priscilla today, we are doing that. And we're going to look at opportunities for perhaps the Spanish language influencer, which is the newest thing, which I'm far from, but look for opportunities there going forward. Go to the next slide, please. And then last but not least, if you join Capitol Quarters team, you get to get embarrassed at your first meeting with an introduction. I want to introduce 3 new staff people to our team. Renee Graham, who is a principal marketing representative, and Renee we have worked with for many years. She was at Amtrak for 17 years and had a high-level position in communications there. We're super excited to have Renee on board. Sabrina Duenas is also joining us, and she's been in the private sector recently, and through that, she actually supported San Joaquin Service as one of her clients. So they both bring rail to the team. And then last but not least, Grant Vinson is our Climate Corps Fellow. And I will say, in terms of developing new staff for the future, both Kate and Shirley went through the Climate Corps program. So this has been a great avenue for us to introduce people to rail who are interested in the environment. And Grant is our latest addition. He joins us from Wisconsin, so he's new to California. We're super excited to have him on the team. With that, I'll pause. I'll be happy to take any questions on the managing director's report or the next agenda item, an update on all of our projects.
Okay, I'll first call for any public comments.
No speaker cards received, Chair Rayburn, and I don't see any hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. Director.
All right, thank you, Chair. Well, this is, I think the language access approach is the right one, and finding more opportunities to connect to a broader audience. I'm just curious on this is kind of like the marketing front too. Have we explored working with ethnic media as well?
I'm going to ask Priscilla to come to the desk here and answer that question.
Hi, this is Priscilla. Yeah, we did talk about that with our advertising agency, and we'll be looking into ways that we can research how we can do that in a way that's cost effective for us.
Wonderful. I think that would be a great option if it makes sense. And then just also wanted to thank the new staff. Welcome on board.
Thank you very much for your comments. Other hands raised? I don't see any on. I'll just make a couple of comments. One, I'm remiss for not introducing BART's Deputy General Manager. And Michael Jones is in the house today, and thank you for being here with us. BART provides one of the outreach components, our call center. And does our call center provide for language options?
Good morning, everybody. Michael Jones, Deputy General Manager at BART. First of all, General Manager Power sends his regards. He had a commitment that he made several months ago and had to keep it. So you get the B team this morning. I'm sure the answer to that question is yes, Director Rayburn. I'm almost positive, but you kind of caught me off guard here. But
Okay,
I'd be
sorry,
shocked
good
if it's
check.
no. I'm sure we have bilingual folks, multi-language folks in that cost center.
Priscilla's nodding her head, so. And also, regarding the performance and revenue in particular, of course, Director Salzman earlier commented that Cal State STA holds us to a very high standard, that they want us back at 50% fare box recovery. We're not measuring fare box recovery or reporting it out. Would it be possible to include that metric? Or could you even?
We'll add that to the slides going forward. Absolutely.
Do you know about where we're at today?
So we're at about 38%, projected to be at 41% in the next fiscal year.
Thank you. That's an admirable increase from where we were at just last year when our overall revenue was at 31% of pre-pandemic, or yes, pre-pandemic. Director James. Sorry.
So I think you said the venture cars come October 15th.
Yeah, the current expectation is there will be 2 sets of venture cars commissioned on about October 15th, which will bring them into service in the San Joaquin Valley. The overall plan for the fleet utilization across California is, as more of the venture cars are in place in the San Joaquin Valley, we will benefit, and as will Losan, from the cars that are currently used for their service.
Is there going to be an event? I know when VTA and Caltrain rolled out their new electric trains, that was a big deal. They had a big event around it.
We will be sure to invite all of you to any events that are held to bring those into service. Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you.
Great suggestion. Other comments? Are there any requests for items to drill down into? Then we'll turn to board director reports. Any comments about things you've seen, would like to see? I want to note that I used the Martinez station the other day, and for the first time in probably over a year, I wasn't directed to a porta potty out in the parking lot, and I was able to ride my bike right to the platform without a detour. So all the platform edge improvements have been completed, and it looks beautiful. So that brings us to any public comments on items that haven't been on the agenda.
No speaker cards received, but I see a hand raised in Sacramento.
Oh, Mr. Barnbaum. Yes, Mr. Barnbaum, I can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're on now. It was tech support.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Haldeshell, who I'm now only in the room with. Directors Byrd and Hernandez had to leave. I just want to mention or piggyback a little bit on the venture cars because it was brought up. September is a busy month for the rail commissions and boards to meet throughout Central and Northern California. So earlier this month, there was a San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission. This board is meeting today, and Friday at 10 a.m. on Microsoft Teams will be the board meeting of the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. They meet on a Friday every odd numbered month. So this is being an odd numbered month. They are meeting this month, and that meeting is Friday at 10 a.m. again on Microsoft Teams. They have already told me they're going to bring up on the agenda an update and presentation about the venture cars. that is marked and on the agenda, as well as estimated time frame of return to service of the 7th round trip that was in the schedule pre-pandemic. If to be reminded to everybody, that was train 701 to Sacramento from Bakersfield, and train 704 from Sacramento back to Bakersfield, and other associated throughway bus services. That meeting begins at 10 a.m. If anyone on staff or anyone on this board would like to attend, I just want to put that out there that that's happening on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I don't see any additional hands raised.
Thank you very much. That brings us to an adjournment. The next meeting date will be 10 a.m. on November 15th, and we will, I understand, discuss any service adjustments to meet budget needs. And I appreciate all the presentations today. I thought we had some very healthy discussions, particularly around the safety issues, as well as very pertinent comments regarding the budget. So it's been a good meeting. Thank you. Have safe travels.